Hi, good afternoon to all of you. So, am I audible? Right. So, only one topic is remaining in this particular, in this particular integrity point of view, that is digital signature standard. That's very easy. I will take a few minutes to complete that, and after that, we'll move to actual computer security problems. We are moving from cryptography to computer security problems. These are all real-time problems, and how to identify these real-time problems and how to solve these real-time problems and how to identify these real-time problems. This is the only discussion is left for our in our course, and these particular topics are very interesting to all of you mostly. Why? Because cryptography is a little different concepts to understand. Whatever. Okay, I need to finish this digital signature standard. Okay, I'm just sharing my whiteboard. After that, I will come back to my presentation again. Yeah, today we will complete this digital signature standard. This is a simple extension of your last time we discussed the Elgamal digital signature. That one, okay, little okay, they enhanced and finally they approved, NIST approved this particular digital signature standard. This short form we will call it as a DSS, right? So here what we required is simple, some public key parameters are required. So they are, one is going to be Q is a prime number, and one more prime number P. P is going to be equal to NQ plus 1 NQ plus 1. This is also going to be a prime number, and typically these are the length of these two are going to be 160 bits. The Q length is equal to 160 bits, and P length is also going to be P length is going to be equal to 1024 bits. bits. Right. Then we have to use generator, that is going to be G subscript 0 is a generator. Generator of Z cap or underscore P. That means, okay, we can represent this one like this, Z star like this, Z star P. Means it is a cyclic group. So from that cyclic group, we will select one particular value as a generator that we discussed in a couple of classes back, right? Then this G is equal to we can use here simple generators, generate subgroup GQ of Z star P of order Q. Order Q. That means here I'm supposed to use here Z star P. And Z star P, right? This is an order of Q. Now we have three algorithms. So the same three algorithms we can use. Key generation algorithm, and in the key generation algorithm, just you define X is from ZQ, and Y we can define like this. X is going to be defined. X is going to be defined from ZQ, and this should be chosen randomly. That's why R I'm writing over here, and Y is also represent with help of g to the power x of mod p, and we can declare this as a secret key and this as a this as a secret key, and this is going to be declare that this as a public key. X is a secret key and Y is a public key. We can declare, and here this is going to be, say, a secret key is going to be equal to 160 bits, and a public key is going to be used as a 1024 bit key we are using. Next, signature algorithm we have. In the signature algorithm, we need to be define signature algorithm. We are going to be define some of the values. So here first we need to be define k, that is as it is in our discussion. The second one is going to be again R. We defined R in the previous LGAML also, right? And as usual, your hash value, that is going to be small m we written. The small m is equal to h of capital M. This is a hash of capital M. Then after we will define S, that we can see that, right? So in this key generation, first of all, we need to be discuss how we need to be generated k. K is going to be generated like this. Z star q, that means a cyclic group. You choose any value from this cyclic group randomly. Then after you need to be compute your rk is going to be equal to g to the power x, sorry, g to the power k. This is correct, right? G to the power k of mod p of mod q, of mod p followed by mod q, mod q, right? Then finally we need to be define another parameter, that is going to be our s. How we will define s? S is going to be equal to m plus rx. The small change here, m plus rx. Earlier it is there m minus rx. M plus rx divided by k of mod q, of mod q. This is here. One thing in the signing algorithm we need to be write it down. If we have to redo, if r equal to 0 and s equal to 0, or here not and we can use, or we can use and s equal to 0. Either r equal to 0 or s equal to 0. You can redo this process. Finally, you can declare this as a signature. Finally, you need to be declare this r value and s value as a signature for your message. R value and S value, these two are going to be as a message. Clear? The final algorithm we have, that is going to be the verification algorithm. So verification algorithm, right? In this verification algorithm, just you need to be check. What you need to be check? First you need to be check is 0 is less than R is less than Q and 0 is less than S less than Q. This particular condition we need to be verified initially. If this condition is succeeded, if this condition is going to be satisfied, right, then only we need to be checked. The final checking is going to be check R to the power, the y to the power R divided by S, y to the power R divided by S, and g to the power m divided by S, g to the power m divided by S. So g to the power m divided by S and m divided by S of mod P and mod Q, of mod P and of mod Q, which is equal to R, where your H of so where okay H of where small m is equal to your H of m. That means that the hash value is going to be same. Then the same way you need to be check the correctness of this algorithm. Very simple algorithm. You need to be check okay, first public parameters you need to be defined. Q is a prime number, P is also prime number. P, how we can choose? P is equal to NQ plus 1. So this sometimes people are going to be called as a Blum integers. Okay, so that means okay, there is a relation between Q and P. So that relation you need to be maintained and choose a generator. That after that you need to be generate some subgroups based on your generator, right? Then you have to be declare your public key and private key parameters. Then you have to go for signing algorithm. In the signing algorithm, same as it is Elgamal digital signature K we are defined, okay, R is defined, but a small slight changes they made and they finally approved this as a digital signature standard. This is a digital signature. Same thing happened. Okay, what is the problem we discussed in the Elgamal digital signature? We discussed that should be okay compromised for adaptive chosen ciphertext. Here, this algorithm is also going to be compromised to adaptive chosen ciphertext. Why? Because you are using this particular point. You may observe this particular point, m equal to h of m. We are not changing anything here, which may leads to create same adaptive chosen ciphertext attack. So that okay, here we need to be change this one, then which is going to be secure against adaptive chosen ciphertext attack. How we need to be changed? That is going to be m is equal to h of m and append r value, right? So this is the okay. What about okay our digital signature standard? So now I'm concluding okay this particular integrity part. In the integrity part, we started with the cryptography hash function. We discussed based on the cryptography hash function. Then after we discussed okay little about okay how to design okay cryptography hash functions. Markle-Damgard, Markle tree concepts are there. After that, we move towards to okay understand about the SHA algorithms. But okay we haven't okay discussed much on SHA algorithms. After that, we comes to two major applications based on this particular okay cryptography hash functions. One is a message authentication code. There we discussed okay, a few algorithms, and after that we comes to digital signature. Here we studied okay RSA algorithm, probabilistic signature SIM, and Elgamal, modified Elgamal, and digital Elgamal digital signature standard. And here okay we discussed mainly the adaptive chosen ciphertext kind of attacks. So now we achieved one particular okay, point, that is going to be integrity. There are two objectives we placed in front of us starting of this class. One is confidentiality, second one is going to be integrity. So we achieved these two after this class. I'm assuming. So now there are few key exchange protocols are there, that few co-exchange protocol, that means the Diffie-Hellman key exchange process we already discussed in our class. The same way few key exchange protocols are there, but okay, we have a time, we will cover that, okay, key exchange protocols. Why? Because okay, there is a sender and receiver. In between sender and receiver, securely you need to be exchange the keys. For that, there are several key exchange mechanisms are there. Authentication purpose, this is more important. So if we have a time, we will cover that one also. Otherwise, okay, we will finish, okay, the cryptography part, okay, till this point. So that, okay, you have a syllabus also, you need to be keep it for, okay, your midterm like this, okay, we discussed about, okay, initially some classical cryptography mechanisms and properties of securities. Then after we comes to symmetric cryptography, we completed, okay, AES, DES concept, and in between mode of operations are there, CBC, ECB, and the CFB, CTR, likewise, okay, some mode of operations we discussed. Then after we finish that AES algorithm, after we move to some little number theory concepts. In the number theory concept, little Fermat's theorem, Euler theorem, Chinese remainder theorem, Miller-Robin theorem, this we covered. Then after we comes to public key cryptography, we discussed RSA, El-Gamal algorithms mainly. Then we comes to cryptography part, cryptography hash function part. We understood about the cryptography hash function and it's a basic information. Then finally we completed MAC and digital signatures. So whatever the topics we covered in the class, the same thing is going to be under your in your examination, midterm examination. So, and one more topic I may cover, then I will include that syllabus also in your midterm examination, right? So now I'm moving to computer security. It's a very interesting and very much required topic for all of us. So now my slides are visible to all of you. May I know? One of you may answer for me. Slides are visible right now. Thank you. Yeah, this is the main goal of our course to understand. So whatever we learned till now, that is the background work to understand about this computer security problems. I told you we have data security, we have computer security, and we have network security. Now the rest of the course we are going to be cover these topics only. Right. So the computer security problem means we have lots of buggy softwares are there. And social engineering is very effective. You might be understand why social engineering is very effective. Almost everywhere, the major problem creator is going to be social engineering only. So governments are working to design some policies for this social engineering, and these social engineering issues are very creating a lot of headache to the government as well as to the police people. Actually, you'll see that what kind of problems are there here. Money can be made from finding and exploiting the vulnerabilities. The main issues are the marketplace exploits, marketplace found by machines, and many methods to profit from owned machines. So this is the current state of art for the computer security. And you may observe in 2019 some of the problems are there. It might be these are the vulnerabilities. So Android has the maximum number of vulnerabilities. And after that, Debian Linux, most of people we are going to be feel secure. These Linux operating systems are very secure, but you need to be observe the number of vulnerabilities over here on this. After that, Windows, right? So here you might not find Mac at the top 10. Earlier it was there, but now in 2019 Mac was not there in the top 10 vulnerabilities. And here Android is a mobile operating system. We know that. You know how many layers are there in Android operating system? And typical Linux operating system has 3 layers, but Android has 4 layers. What are they? At the kernel, then after your libraries, then after your application 1 and application 2. So that's why the architecture is a very vulnerable architecture of this Android. We'll see how this is going to be vulnerable in that. And you may observe mainly the most of the attacks are going to be based on the browser, based on browser-based attacks only. Why? Because okay, I told you in the, I might be told you in the class, the browser is also going to be treated as an operating system. It's a kind of operating system. Why? Because it's going to be done a lot of work for us. That's why the most of the problems are related to the browser only. And okay, here, whatever protocols we supposed to be used, most of the time we will use the stateless protocols only. Example, your HTTP is stateless protocol. Right. Based on that only we developed HTTPS also. We are talking about okay, we are dealing with the security. Okay. Next one is Android. Android has okay several okay loopholes, because okay one app to suppose okay one app required another app permissions, like your okay message one-time password you may receive, or okay so whenever you are using internet banking, you may instruct to your okay SMS app directly. You may read one-time password and update that one-time password on the website directly, right? Then we have a Java related problem issues are there, your Microsoft Office related problem issues are, and other issues are also there. The major problems and major vulnerabilities are okay belongs to the browser only, browser and Android. So we'll see our discussion is also going to be based on the browser as well as to the Android, right? So just I will give you a small example to you people. Any questions? Okay, you have? Right, you don't have any questions, then I have to go and okay present here. Users have an expert. So suppose okay here okay online meeting tools. All online meeting tools are okay are suffering with some vulnerabilities. One of the famous problem related to the Zoom client. We'll see how the problem is. Users have an expectations of privacy. The problems with the crypto, till now we discussed the crypto only. The problems with the crypto are there many. You may study from this particular article, which was published in April 2020. And the second one is how not to save a user click. So this is also another okay issue. Example I will tell you. Generally, at your browser, we have two things are there in a Mac OS system. Browser is there and Zoom app is there. The local host, we can say, there's a local server for Zoom application. So whenever you are going to be click on, so https zoom.com, you require a meeting number. So then what happens? A browser is going to be, that means your okay, Zoom app is going to be okay, that means instruct or okay through browser you can okay write okay zoom.com, this meeting I want to attend. Then the request is going to be processed at okay zoom.com server. Then server responds to your request. So once the response comes to you, then the browser is going to be launch the local Zoom application. This is the general procedure. Any particular meeting application you may observe, even our Google Meet also going to be do the same kind of operations only. If you have audio and video kind of okay activity. So what we need to be understood? So we plan to okay open zoom.us.app. So can we bypass the security dialog here? We'll see how we can okay, bypass the security dialog. Actually, local Zoom web server mainly listens on the port. Okay, that number is going to be 19421. This is the local host number. We will use that. So whenever you are going to be launch the application, the zoom.com tells to your browser, send an HTTP request to the local web server. So that means zoom.com is informed to your browser and send a request to your web server, Zoom web server, which is locally hosted. That is here. So this is okay. This you find out here. This is you might find out the browser is sending a request, then Zoom.com tells to the browser here, okay, it is instructing HTTP localhost 194.21/launch, action is going to be join, and conference number is going to be equal to some XYZ conference number. This is the procedure. That means whenever this particular instruction is there here, then automatically it will be executed, and once execution is going to be happened, then automatically it connects to the Zoom web server. Zoom web server. You go to Microsoft Teams, or you go to Zoom, or any other go to Meet. This kind of all applications are using the same procedure only. Same procedure only. So whenever, that means this kind of dialog box are there. That means these dialog boxes are embedded in your that means that web page actually embedded in the web page, and that is going to be executed locally, which might be create a lot of problem. That's why my question over here is going to be, it can be attacked or not. It can be attacked or not. You may observe very carefully. We can so see the problem how we can so joins a user without your knowledge. Some users are going to be joined and some users are going to be left out. Simple in Google Meet, there is one particular problem. What is the problem? It is, we cannot call it as an attack, but it can be interrupt your services. Example, just now I am typing something, somebody is writing, somebody is drawing some lines and XYZ. If they might be doing intentionally somehow something, but that is a limitation in Google Meet. That is a limitation. You can sometimes treat that as an attack also. Somebody is going to interrupt your lecture. So like that. Okay. So same way here, what happens if suppose that local dialog is there between the browser to the local web server, what happens we can see. So some evil.com is there. You might be requested evil.com. Evil.com is going to be request you to execute this one. You send a request to evil.com, then evil.com is going to be send this kind of statement to you to execute. So whenever you are going to be execute, what happens? That is going to be connected to your local Zoom web server. Local Zoom web server. Sir, what they will get? They may collect your data information from your local database. It's a major problem actually. It's a major problem. So this was responsible disclosure within 90 days. This is a CVE number. Just you observe this CVE number. You may go and you will get more details about this particular problem. So finally, this particular problem fixed by the Zoom and web server removed by Apple MRT tool. Right. So now you observe. So these are the major problems are there. Then finally, disable macOS hardened runtime. So defense against code injection, library hijacking, and process memory space tampering. All these kind of problems are there based on this particular one. And once user give Zoom access to the camera and mic, macOS ensures that entire application code does not change. And here you might be observed, user requires to give the approval over here. So that automatically, that means you just go and check the security part on Apple MacBooks, you will able to find that. So can this be abused, right? So this is a small example to you. Whenever you have user approved access to camera and mic, the Zoom app is going to be connected to libSSL.1.0. Then CURL 64. So these are the dynamic libraries are going to be loaded at Zoom startup. So that might be leads to provide attacker install malware library that proxies in libSSL. He may access camera, mic, and etc. etc. So that's why we need to be use this validation. The validation always is going to be true. So hardened runtime does not notify users of change to libSSL. This is the problems. So what I am planned to deliver to you, that means, okay, these are the at present, okay, problems I want to deliver to you in this particular sessions. Next coming sessions, every session is going to be, we are going to be discuss about the current research, the current problems which we are facing in the internet, or okay, at the operating system level, or at the programming level. What kind of problems are there that we are going to be discuss. The mainly we will study some exploit techniques like buffer overflow, stack overflow, heap overflow, right? Format string problems. These okay going to be covered. Then after understanding some available security tools, finally we need to understand how to architect a secure systems from this. That's why here okay, the main topics which we are going to be covered in the rest of the course: securing applications, your operating system, and the legacy of the code. That means your sandboxing, access control. And here we will study discretionary access control and mandatory access control kind of activities in this. It's a very interesting second part is the web security. We will study the top attacks related to SQL injection, cross-site scripting, cross-site request forgery, and broken authentication concepts. This kind of real-time problems we are going to be studying in this particular topic. And it's a last part is going to be very interesting to all of us. A network security part. You have DNS, you have ICMP, you have ARP, you have TCP. All these protocols are not secure, and how the people are going to be misuse this kind of protocols we'll study in this particular network security class. So the rest of the course is going to be based on these particular topics only, right? So I'm just introducing some kind of attacks to motivate all of you. So why compromise systems? IP address and bandwidth stealing. Attacker is look like a random internet user, uses the IP address of unaffected machine or phone, and is going to be create a spam. Or for example, you may observe a strong botnet, which used for spam analytics, and they gain a lot of money due to this attack. And another one is going to be the denial of service attack. There are multi variants are there in the denial of service attack. The major attack is going to be the distributed denial of service attack. The major attacks are going to be distributed denial of service attacks. That means if you have such a kind of system, per hour people are going to be pay $20 to you, and 24 hours they are going to pay $100 to you. $100 to you, right? So finally, one more interesting problem is that is click fraud attack. For example, look, you might be see that clickbot.ai problem. So here, we are mainly focusing how people are going to be compromise the systems and why they are going to be compromise the systems. We'll study a simple example to understand. So mainly you need to be talking about the key logs for banking passwords and corporate passwords and gaming passwords. So this attack, we call it as a silent banker attack. And the same way we have so many attacks. You know already I had a discussion with all of you in the last course, I think, or some classes I might be discussed with you how a client is going to be connected to a server. And what happens, user generally we will request for the login page to access the banking server. Then banking server is going to provide login page to you. Then if suppose any malware is going to be injected by the attacker in between, so the malware injected JavaScript is going to be executed at the client end, and whatever the client confidential information or the banking passwords are there, that information is also going to be sent to the attacker. That's why most of the time banking people are going to be suggested you to use one-time passwords only. Once you use, immediately you need to be change the password. Once you use, you change the password immediately. So this whatever it is, this kind of attack, whatever attack we are observing over here, this attack we call it as a man in the browser attack. Man in the browser attack. The similar kind of mechanism used by JDUS botnet and some other botnets. Are you fine? Are you understand man in the browser attack? That means they are going to introduce in between the malware injects that malware, and the malware is going to be injected in your JavaScript. That as a JavaScript is going to provide information to bank as well as to the attacker also. This is. And another very interesting problem. Right now, most of the government organizations and most of the institutes are facing the problem with financial malwares. Cryptocurrency is very popular. The blockchain, cryptocurrency, these are very popular. Bitcoin especially. Now, the Tesla is almost invested millions of rupees or millions of dollars in the Bitcoin. Understand the cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency mainly works based on the banking. That means some passwords and something only. Once you lose your password, that's enough. Your complete money you lost. So that's why. So this how they are going to collect through spam emails only. They will collect, and they will collect the information about they are going to collect confidential information. Finally, maintains access to PC for future installs. Maintains future installs. This is the information. Example, we can see some of the attacks are there on mobile devices, right? FinSpy. It works on iOS as well as on Android, and also some Windows phones also, Windows-based phones also. So once it is going to be installed, it collects your contacts, your history information, call history information, your geolocation text information, and whatever the messages encrypted chat applications are there, that all are going to be collect the information. So these are your email, iOS 2007, physical access is there. So third one is going to be ransomware. It's a very popular from 2017 onwards. WannaCry, you might be know how many systems are affected, and most of the countries were feared about this WannaCry attack. That you might know actually. So how WannaCry works? They're going to give some time to you to pay. That payment is also through Bitcoin only. It's a cryptocurrency, so that where it was originated and where it is going, nobody don't know actually. Where it was originated and where it is going, nobody don't know. So this is the beauty of this particular cryptocurrency. That's why most of the ransomware attackers are going to be use this particular path to collect the money from some users, right? And server-side attacks are there. Data theft, your credit card numbers or your intellectual property. So those informations are going to be collected from the servers. Actually, Amazon server, Flipkart, generally we will store our usernames and password. That means our credit card information, except the 3-digit security code. Remaining all details are be provided to the Amazon and other online marketing websites. We believed on that, but somebody may theft this particular information from their database. That's enough. You lose your complete control on your card information. So that there are many similar kind of attacks are there in 2000, and the political motivation, DNC, Tunisia, Facebook, and GitHub in 2015, right? In I think last not this time, before this Trump was won, Facebook provided a lot of information to win in that elections. Unaffected visiting users, example MPAC is there. This is also another here mainly they used a SQL injection to compromise the site. So there are several defenses are there. One of the defenses is going to be your Google Safe browser. So generally in 2012 to 15, what are the information they're going to be collect? SSN information, payment card information, medical or health information, driver license information, or online some credentials. So companies are going to lose customer data, especially here. Okay, we need to be talking about the email-based attacks. That email-based attack means one attack is going to be there, whale attack. Whale attack means their targets only CEOs of the companies only. They are going to be target CEOs of the companies. So that okay, they immediately they will collect a lot of money from the CEOs, like a CEO, right? So that's why here okay, companies are going to lose customers' data. Now this is another big problem actually. So mainly how they are going to be losing malware, okay, through hacking. So they are going to inject the malware and hack the systems, or physically they are going to be lose the data. Laptops or servers are going to be stolen, accidental disclosure, and some XYZ. So marketplace vulnerabilities we have to check. Bug bounty programs are there. Google vulnerability reward program will pay you $31,000 to you around. Microsoft bounty program will provide $100,000, $100,000, and Apple bug bounty program is going to provide a $200,000. Right, you will get some money over there. So the marketplace vulnerabilities are going to be, you observe, there are three mainly we can consider. One is the remote code execution, local privilege escalation, and sandbox escaping. This comes under your Gerodium payment. That means the source this particular information from the Gerodium payouts. And here you may observe okay, the typical problems, the Windows RC, zero-click, and Chrome RC plus LPE, and here Safari, Edge, and Firefox has its own problem, and Windows Adobe PDF has problem, and so on, right? And here also you may observe okay, here also you may observe okay, Android FCP plus iOS FCP are facing the problems. WeChat, iMessage, FB Messenger, Signal, Telegram, all these are going to be compromising for remote code execution and local privilege escalation. Right? WhatsApp is there, SMS, okay, MME. These applications are suffering mainly. And finally, they're going to be collect your PIN by PIN. They're going to bypass your PIN, passcode bypass, touchpad bypass. All these are going to be activities they perform. So if you have a questions, let me know so that okay, I can answer for your questions. Oh, my slides are. Just a minute. Any questions from you? Any questions? If you don't have a questions, let me say no so that okay, I will close my session. Thank you.